Welcome back, fellow K-2 educators. Today's explainer is designed specifically to make your lives a whole lot easier and your instruction way more effective. Now, if you're an early years literacy teacher like me, you already know that keeping young learners engaged while building those foundational reading skills can sometimes feel like an uphill battle. But today, we're going to talk about transforming basic phonics and reading practice into interactive play. And honestly, the best part? We're doing it with a super simple, inexpensive tool you probably already have sitting in your classroom right now. Yep, we're talking about dice.
So think about it for a second. When you look at a pair of dice, what's the very first thing that comes to mind? Usually it's addition, subtraction, or maybe setting up a counting game for a math center, right? So are dice just for math centers? Absolutely not. When we naturally reach for them to teach numbers, they are actually an incredibly powerful tactile tool for phonics, phonemic awareness, and reading fluency.
Okay, let's dive into this. The core philosophy of today's explainer is really all about working smarter, not harder. As our source material highlights, the goal here is to have fun, easy activities that you can swap in and out with all sorts of different literacy skills. You really don't need fancy, expensive manipulatives for this. In fact, if you just organize a compact, mobile teaching kit, maybe grab a few sets of dice in small storage bins, print out some ready-to-go templates, grab your dry erase markers, and snag a visual timer for managing game transitions, you're going to have literally everything you need to run highly effective small groups anywhere in your room.
All right, here is our agenda for today. First, rethinking math tools. Second, roll a word for blending. Third, roll and read for fluency. And finally, roll a sound for phonemic awareness.
Let's start with Section 1, Rethinking Math Tools, from Numbers to Letters.
When we're teaching those small, guided reading groups, our main goal is often filling in phonics gaps and figuring out exactly where our students are struggling to decode. By utilizing simple dice, we create low-prep, highly adaptable literacy centers where you can just plug in whatever specific phonics skill you're currently working on. And because it's so incredibly accessible, this is a fantastic strategy to share with families. You can easily draft a simple letter or a quick guide for parents, explaining exactly how they can use a pair of dice from an old board game to lead these exact same literacy activities during home reading time. It bridges that gap between classroom learning and home support so beautifully.
Moving on to Section 2, Roll a Word, Blending, Mastering CVC and Word Families. This first game focuses heavily on blending. And let me tell you, it is an absolute staple for kindergarten and first grade. Notice how wonderfully simple the physical setup is. You start by designing a simple whiteboard mat, just writing a target middle vowel right in the center, let's say the letter A. Then you grab two different colored dice. You want to give specific verbal prompts to keep the group focused. So you might say something like, okay friends, the pink die is our starting letter and the orange die is our final letter. They roll the dice, write the corresponding letters on either side of the vowel on their whiteboard mat, and then blend the sounds together. This physical, tactile action is brilliant for supporting children with ADHD to remain focused during play, and it actively engages those fine motor skills.
Let's look at a concrete example for this word blending exercise. Say a student rolls their pink die and gets a P. Then they roll their orange die and get a T. They write them around the A and blend the sounds. P, A, T, pat. Once they read the word, they have to evaluate it. Is this a real word or a nonsense word? You can have them simply give a thumbs up for a real word like pat or a thumbs down for a nonsense word. It's super quick, it's low stakes, and it builds student confidence incredibly fast.
Now, once they master basic CVC blending, you can level up to onset and rhyme, or even recommend a sequence for introducing digraphs and complex spelling patterns using the dice. Let's say you're reviewing short I and short U word families. One die becomes the onset, like the letter S, and the other die becomes the rhyme, like ite. They roll, combine to make sit, and write it down. To create a quick assessment sheet during this small group play, just draw a basic grid on their whiteboard. Have them roll and write down 10 different words in their grid to track individual phonic mastery, putting a check mark next to the real ones and an X next to the nonsense ones.
All right, Section 3, Roll and Read, Fluency, Decodable Sentences, and Expression.
This game is completely dedicated to fluency, practicing decodable sentences, and reading with expression. For this one, you only need a single die. The setup is incredibly straightforward. On your whiteboard or printed mat, you simply number 1 through 6 and write a decodable sentence next to each number. In your small group, students take turns. If a student rolls a 4, they read sentence number 4 aloud. This allows you to really hear and monitor their decoding skills. To keep things running smoothly, definitely rely on your visual timer and establish firm routines for managing student movement between these small group rotations.
You know, you can also use dice for expressive reading practice whole group. Instead of decodable sentences, assign different fun voices or emotions to the numbers 1 through 6. Imagine assigning number 1 to reading like a robot, sounding super stiff and mechanical, number 2 like a wobbly alien, or number 3 with a dramatically angry voice. Students roll the die and read a passage from their shared text using that specific, fun voice.
The true magic of this variation is perfectly captured right here. We want students to read that passage over and over in different ways. Repetitive reading is absolutely essential for building fluency organically, but doing it the same way gets boring fast. Gamifying it with dice and funny voices sneaks in that vital repetition while keeping engagement sky high. And hey, here's a quick professional tip for managing classroom noise during energetic dice play. Swap out hard plastic dice for soft foam dice. This simple tactile modification is wonderful for students with diverse sensory processing needs who might be overwhelmed by the clattering sounds on hard desks.
And that brings us to Section 4, Roll a Sound, Phonemic Awareness, Isolating Sounds.
This final game focuses purely on phonemic awareness, specifically isolating the beginning, middle, or end sounds in a word. To set this up, all you need is a sheet with 6 simple high-contrast clip art images, which is really crucial for our non-readers, and number them 1 through 6. Before the game starts, you establish the rule. Are we listening for the beginning, the middle, or the ending sound? The student rolls the die, finds the matching picture, and isolates the target phoneme aloud. So, for example, if number 1 is a picture of a sun, and you're working on initial sounds, the student rolls a 1 and simply says the phoneme s. If they roll a 3 for pot, they say p. Notice it's entirely auditory to start. You can even use physical tokens to track correct word identifications during play, sliding a little counter across the table for every correctly isolated sound. This gives them immediate, positive visual feedback.
Let's see how this builds when students are ready for a bit more of a challenge. You level up by having them identify the grapheme. You introduce a simple recording sheet, a little template to track phoneme-grapheme progress. Now, when they roll that 1 for sun and hear the S sound, they have to pick up their marker and actually write the letter S. You're directly connecting that phonemic awareness to phonics mapping, documenting their growth seamlessly during your small group session.
You can make this even more engaging by turning it into a 5-in-a-row partner game. Students take turns rolling, isolating sounds, and writing the graphemes. They go back and forth until someone fills in 5 boxes in a row on their recording sheet. It just adds a fun layer of friendly competition. And for those mixed ability small groups, you can offer tiered versions of these games. Some students might just be isolating verbally to build confidence, while you offer quick ways to adjust the difficulty for advanced students, challenging them to write full digraphs or complex spelling patterns on their grid.
So, the crucial takeaway here is that these 3 frameworks, roll a word, roll and read, roll a sound, are incredibly versatile. You can slip them right into guided reading groups, use them for specific phonics practice, or set them up as independent centers. They are the absolute definition of low prep and high engagement. You could even use these concepts to create a template for a 1-week rotation plan that cycles through all 3 of these dice activities, hitting blending, fluency, and phonemic awareness comprehensively without ever boring your students.
We've seen today how simple numbers can unlock an entirely new way to practice letters, sounds, and fluency. By just bringing a few dice into your small groups, you can transform repetition into play, support diverse learners with tactile tools, and easily track their mastery. So, I'll leave you with this final thought. Take a look at your lesson plan for tomorrow. Which literacy skill will you choose to gamify with a pair of dice? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy teaching.